Shall we do a parade? All right, I'm going to march out. Fight in line and follow me. We're just going to march around and come back around. We'll come in front of the camera and everybody go back to their places. Ready? Yay! Girl named Zelda. Now Zelda's poor mother was the royal baker, and from dawn to dusk she worked until she was ragged, baking delectable pastries to please the finicky queen, and boy was she a finicky queen. But Zelda refused to help. She fancied herself much too special for work of any kind. There she is, sitting looking in the mirror at herself while her mom is doing all the baking. No matter what Zelda's mother begged her to do, lazy Zelda had an excuse. Measure? Too messy, Mom. Bake? It's too hot. Frost? Too sticky, Mom. Blech. At last, she was assigned the job of spinning the ruby-colored yarn that the queen ordered to be tied around each royal pastry box. But Zelda whined and complained until her mother ended up doing that job as well. Work is so boring, Zelda said. So she sat day after day as cozy as one of the queen's fat cats. Look at that! Everybody's working and she's loafing. What a loafer. Then one morning the queen ordered a 5-layer prune cake for a last-minute picnic with the prince. The bakers were frantic, trying to complete the impossible task, and they all feared the queen's nasty temper and her dungeon. Just as royal footsteps were heard outside, the workers rushed to lower the finished cake into its box. But there was no royal red yarn to tie around it. Quick, Zelda, her mother whispered, spin us a bit of yarn. At that request, Zelda let out an ear-splitting whine that gave shivers to everyone, including the queen and her dim-witted son, who had walked in at that very moment. Uh-oh. Here comes the queen, and she's a grouch, and her son, and there's no red royal yarn to tie around those royal cake boxes. What is going on here? The queen boomed in her high and mighty voice, and the kitchen fell deathly quiet. Until Zelda's mother slowly stepped forward. Fearing that Zelda might be punished, her mother lied. My Majesty, my daughter is such a hard worker. I simply cannot get her to stop spinning. We argue day and night because she will soon be out of flax. Oh dear. The queen's eyes lit up and she smiled. I love hard workers. And the sound of spinning is like music to my ears. Let me have your daughter, and she can go on spinning to her heart's content. Now everyone was thrilled with this idea because she wouldn't be in the kitchen. The queen was looking for a hardworking bride to marry her useless son. The prince, who cared only about fancy, silly things, thought Zelda looked just his type, and Zelda's mother was glad to see Zelda get a job with someone else. And Zelda thought she would finally have the fancy life she deserved. There she is. Off she goes. The queen led Zelda to a tower where there were 3 rooms filled with floor to ceiling with royal flax grown in every color of the rainbow. Spin all of this, spin all of this into fine linen thread, ordered the queen. When you are done, you may marry my son. I don't mind that you are so poor if you are such a hard worker. Oh dear. Marry the prince? Hot diggity dog, thought Zelda. She nearly fainted with joy, and as the door slammed shut, boosh, she danced between the piles of flax. And then looking around, she chuckled to herself. Queenie can't possibly expect me to work. I'm going to be a princess. I can't work. And for 3 days she sat, daydreaming of a royal life. La-di-da, la-di-da, I'm going to be a princess. And I'll never have to do anything, and people will wait on me. And I get to wear beautiful gowns and do all sorts of things that only princesses get to do. But on the 3rd day, the queen returned, and she stared in shock at the untouched flax. No one had ever disobeyed her command. What is the meaning of this? She hissed, her face growing purple with rage. Zelda began to tremble. I was so homesick, she stammered. I couldn't stop crying long enough to spin. The queen eyed her carefully. Enough, she snapped. Tomorrow I shall expect to see that you have begun your work. And the door closed with a crash. Boosh. And the turn of the key. Click. Now Zelda began to panic. Never in a million years could she spin all that flax. She'd be sent to the dungeon. Or worse, back to the bakery. Frantic, Zelda ran to the window to see if she could escape. There she goes, looking out the window. Think she could escape from that window? Outside, Zelda saw 3 very strange-looking fairies flying toward her. One had a big flat foot. Another's tongue hung out of her mouth. And the third had a huge thumb. And they stopped in front of the window. What's the problem? They asked, smiling. And Zelda told the fairies her story. Oh, stop whining, they said. We'd be happy to spin all that flax for you, but here's the deal. We love royal parties. So you must promise to invite us to your wedding and not be ashamed of us, but proudly introduce us as your cousins. Sure. Anything for a life free from work, said Zelda, but hurry. The queen will be back soon. Oh, please hurry. Please hurry. They're the fairies. You see the big foot? And this one has a big thumb. And this one's tongue's hanging out. The fairies introduced themselves as Anita, Benita, and Bob. And they flew straight through the window to begin their work. Anita used her foot to pump the spinning wheel. Benita used her tongue to moisten the fiber as it was twisted. And Bob wound the finely spun thread around his thumb, and each time he hit it on the table, a perfectly shaped skein of yarn fell to the ground. Would you like to help, dear? Asked Anita. It's great fun, said Benita. We could teach you how, said Bob, and Zelda began to laugh. Ha ha, gross. The only thing I hate more than spinning is baking. Of course, my mother does all that anyway. Anyway, I'll never have to work again once I'm a princess. You think? She sure is certain about that, isn't she? All day and all night, the fantastic fairies spun. You're sure you don't want to turn? They asked Zelda kindly. Zelda snorted in reply, turned over, and went back to sleep. There she is, sleeping while everybody works. When the queen came by the next day, Zelda was quick to hide the 3 workers. Then, with great fanfare, she presented skein after skein of the most finely spun flax. Oh, how I do love to work, Zelda crowed every chance she got, hoping to win Her Majesty's royal good favor. Zelda's performance was enough to melt even the iciest queen. Oh, our grumpy queen, was absolutely tinkled pink. She's thrilled. As soon as the first room was empty of the unspun flax, the fairies went on to the second and then the third. Within another day, all 3 rooms were nearly filled with spun thread. One last time, the fairies offered Zelda to let Zelda help. "Forget it," she said. "Work is for fools." And so the amazing fairies finished and said their goodbyes. "Bye, bye. Don't forget your promise," Anita warned. "It will bring you good fortune," Benita said. "And goodbye for now," sang Bob. And with that, the 3 fairies were gone. Right out the window. When Zelda at last showed the queen and the prince the 3 rooms now filled with great piles of thread, they were amazed. "What a splendid worker," gasped the queen, delighted. "What a beautiful girl," sighed the prince, even more delighted. "What fools," snickered Zelda, the most delighted of all. The queen was true to her word. Raising her scepter, she declared, "I grant you the honor of marrying my son." But the queen didn't stop there. "I also bestow upon you the title of royal spinner so that you may continue your fine work." Zelda choked at this news and then thought of the fairies and smiled. "I have 3 cousins," Zelda said. "May they come to the celebration?" "So be it," said the queen. Zelda laughed. "I'll make those fairies do all of my work," she whispered. "What a clever girl I am. Oh boy, they'll do it all for me." Soon the wedding, there she is in her beautiful bride dress. Can you see her in a bride dress? Yes, yes, yes. Do you think everything's going to end happily ever after? Let's find out. Soon the wedding day had arrived, and the couple exchanged vows, and the feast had begun. In walked the 3 fairies, wearing magnificent clothes. See, the fairies are very beautifully dressed. There they are. Excellent for the wedding. Perfect for a royal party. But everyone turned... "Hello, cousins," Zelda mumbled, hoping no one would notice their arrival. But everyone turned to look. The guests admired the fairies' finery made from the most beautifully spun thread. The prince, though, could see only their ugliness. "Good heavens," he gasped. "This is your family?" He ran to Anita and asked, "What gave you such a broad foot?" "Pumping the spinning wheel," she answered proudly. And he ran to Benita and asked, "What caused your tongue to stick out like that?" "Loosening the flax," she said with a smile. And finally he rushed to Bob. "What made your thumb so big?" "Winding the thread," he said. At that, the prince began to sob. "Never," he cried. "My beautiful bride must never go near a spinning wheel again." And to Zelda's great delight, the prince began to beg and plead for her to be relieved of her role as royal spinner. The queen grew weary of the tantrum. "Oh, very well," she shouted. Zelda's smile stretched from ear to ear. This was even better than she had planned. "But," the queen continued, "she loves to work. She told me so herself again and again." "Any job," begged the prince. "Any other job," begged the prince. At last the queen thought. Her eyes scanned the room until they finally came to rest on Zelda's mother.